What we're talking about in, privy terms is the very latest in front wall fresh air orifices combined with a wide capacity gutter installation below.
You mean you crap out of the window?
Yes.
Welcome to episode 4 of the Blackadder podcast. Ian, what's your thoughts on privies? Where do you stand on them, or do you?
Well, only when to reach the light bulb.
A bit of an alfresco chap?
Not recently. Back in the day, you know.
Really?
And Cub Camp and stuff like that.
Cub.
They made us all line up. No, wait.
No,
repressed memories.
Move on. How are things?
Not too bad, Gerry. How are you this week?
Yeah, quite good.
It's really warm.
Very warm. It's getting warmer.
I'm glad I've not gone for coffee this week. A nice iced bottle of water.
Yeah, I've got the hot tea here.
Yeah, sweat it out.
Unfortunate for you.
A little bit.
Enjoy this week's episode.
Yes, I thought it was splendid. I loved this week's episode. It's one of my certainly my top 4.
Yeah, Percy was great in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
The guest star was
spectacular.
Very good, yeah. And we can chat about Baldric. I think his character is still not the Baldric that looking back, we see him as. He's still got a little bit of assurance, a little bit of sense, intelligence, and in fact there's even times in this episode where he chats and offers advice, or even advice is sought from him.
That might be recency bias though, because this is 1/4 of the entire run and he was even smarter in the original series, so half the time Baldric is at least this smart.
Sure. Okay, will we begin?
We can.
How?
Well, first of all, I would implore once more people to go to iTunes or Apple Podcasts and rate, review and subscribe to the show, please. I know it's a pain in the neck, but it would really make a big difference to us. It's 2 minutes out of your life and it helps more people find the show, get more folk talking about it, get a bit more visibility. It would be great for everybody, especially for us, which is why I'm asking.
Okay.
And then we can get onto blackadderpodcast.com and chat about it.
We can. Do you have a summary prepared?
As always.
Crack on.
In Money, Blackadder is visited during the night by a furious bishop, seeking to recover money lent 1 year previously. Edmund lacks the means to pay off his debt, and begins looking for ideas to raise enough money to keep his body intact from the vicious clergyman. With the Queen also requisitioning all of his money, things look grim for Blackadder, but both Percy and Baldric come up with ideas to save the day. Can our hero lean on the genius of these two men, or will he be left to solve his own dilemma with a bit of creative thinking?
Very good question, Ian. If you have to rely on the genius of Percy and Baldric, I think you're in a spot of bother.
It's a dire straits, you might say.
Blackadder's house is where we begin. The first time we see his bedroom, his boudoir, his love den.
Chamber of secrets.
A chamber, all right. He's in bed with a prostitute,
Molly,
and is awoken by Baldric knocking on his door at 4 a.m. in the morning.
4 a.m. usually in the morning.
Normally, it depends what time zone you're in.
That's true.
Not in Australia, it's not.
When Baldric tells him it's 4, he assumes in the afternoon, and he's upset that he's going to have to pay Molly for the 12 additional hours that she's been in the bed, but Baldric reassures him it's night time, but someone's at the door for him.
A priest. So Blackadder tells Baldric to tell him he is Jewish.
Yeah, and to chase him away.
Molly sits up. She wants to be introduced to Baldric. Blackadder's not too keen or doesn't think it's a great idea, but he does so and tells him that she is a dear friend of his.
She insists she's not dear at all.
No, she's very reasonable.
Most would charge an extra 6pence for all the things he wants to do.
Yeah, the horrible things she says. Oh, I can only imagine.
He wants to sing to her or something.
He then tells Baldric to get rid of the priest under threat of reporting him to the Bishop of Bath and Wells, a clergyman who eats babies. Now, do you know something, Ian? For years, I thought it was Bath and Wells.
Okay, no, that's not a real thing.
Yeah.
The Bishop of Bath and Wells is an actual position.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives you a seat in the House of Lords. Yeah, it's the bishop, this particular one drowns babies during christenings and then eats them in the vestry.
Yeah, so when Baldric leaves, he chastises Molly for talking to him, but she claims that he treats her like a human being.
There's a wee connection there between Baldric and Molly, wasn't there?
There certainly was, but Blackadder responds by saying that if he wanted to a lecture on the rights of man, he would have buried Martin Luther.
Baldric then comes flying back through the door, arse first.
Yes, followed by the priest, who is in fact the baby-eating bishop.
You haven't any children, have you, Blackadder?
No, I'm not married.
In that case, I'll skip breakfast and get straight down to business. Do you know what day it is today?
No, I don't.
It is exactly 1 year ago to the day that the Bank of the Black Monks of St. Herod, banking with a smile and a stab, which I am the assistant manager, lent you £1,000. Our motto is repayment or revenge.
Of course, and naturally I would have paid you back, but unfortunately, and this is the real bugger, I've gone and lost my wallet. Disastrous. It had all my addresses in it, all those little notes saying, forget ye not, and of course all my money.
That's no concern of mine. The debt is now due. Not to repay a loan is a sin, and we black monks, we hate sin.
Your Grace, may I introduce my mother?
Good morning, my dear. I hope you haven't forgotten our appointment.
Of course not, Pompey.
I have a mind, my pretty, to play nuns and novices, so don't forget your wimple. But as for you, you come with me.
Where?
To visit the last poor fool who lost his wallet.
There's a commentary track for this episode on the DVD edition with Tony Robinson and Tim McInerney, and they noted particularly that Ronald Lacy, who plays the bishop, got the humour straight away, which made a huge difference. They said that was one of the issues in season 1 of the show, that some of the guests didn't get the jokes they were trying to make, the approach that they were taking, and that he did, and it worked, and I can't argue with that at all.
No, I remember watching this for the first time. Must have been round about the time it was broadcast. I've been quite scared by him.
He's an imposing figure.
Very.
Apparently, they say he's not based on an actual historical figure, but if you look back through the records of the Bishop of Bath and Wells, there are a couple of extended vacancies in the records where there's no bishop listed. So it's almost as if someone's been removed from history for some reason. You would take them out, wouldn't you?
Well, you certainly would, yeah.
Exactly, they didn't exist.
At the graveside.
This is kind of Christmas Carol, isn't it? He's arrived in the middle of the night and he's taken him to a cemetery.
Very much so. He reads from the headstone to discover that the last person not to repay a loan died in agony with a spike up his bottom.
That's true. A fellow shows up who looks to me a bit like the minstrel off the closing credits.
You think? Well, we can chat about that later. He was acting like poor Tom from King Lear.
Right.
He's clawing at his trousers whilst Blackadder tries the best form of defence is attack approach, and he tries to blackmail the bishop.
Well, he does it theoretically. If I were to say this, how would you respond?
It doesn't go down too well. He says that Blackadder's bottom will wish it had never been born.
He wants the money by even song.
Back at his house, and Blackadder explains his position to Baldric and asks what he is to do, and I think we referenced this earlier. These are desperate times indeed when you're chatting to Baldric. You think it's actually worth asking him for his opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, in season 3 and 4, this just would never happen, this conversation.
Yeah.
Baldric's opinion or his view is actually quite to the point. He tells him it's obvious what has to happen. You'll have to get murdered.
Yeah, you can't pay it. Percy's there as well, and he has an opinion. He thinks Blackadder should just pay the man, use his money.
Yeah, Percy is being very casual about it.
Well, Blackadder makes a big show in front of the Queen of how wealthy he is, but he admits here it is just a show. He's absolutely skint.
Yes, these fiscal boasts were just to try and improve his standing.
Yeah.
Then, with a certain pride, he admits to telling numerous whoppers and considers himself to one of the country's finest liars. And then he demonstrates this. Can you remember?
No.
I think something about Percy's hat outside being stolen or vandalised or something, and Percy runs out to try and retrieve it. But yeah, it was just a lie.
Yes.
I think Percy comes back in and he advises him to use his family fortune. But this is not an option, as his father blew it on wine, women and amateur dramatics, and by the end had resorted to doing humorous impressions of Anne of Cleves.
Of course, the present Queen's stepmother.
Yeah, the fourth wife of Henry VIII.
One of the ones that survived him.
We next have a very kind act of generosity.
Yeah, it's unexpected, but very warm-hearted.
But do not despair, for I have some small savings, carefully harvested from my weekly allowance, set aside against my frail old age. By lucky hap, 'tis just over 1,000, methinks, and has for years been hidden beyond the wit of any thief, in an old sock under the squeaky floorboard behind the kitchen dresser. You've seen it?
Seen it, pinched it, spent it. And the same goes for the 2 farthings Borwick thinks he's got hidden inside that mouldy potato.
Oh, bloody hell.
Then you are doomed. Alas. For God's sake, let us sit upon the carpet and tell sad stories.
Certainly not. When Lord Blackadder is in trouble, he does not sit about.
You won't be able to sit about with a spike up your bottom.
Well, exactly. But still, I've got 85 quid and that's a start. I'm sure I'll think of something as long as I'm not disturbed.
My lord, the Queen does demand your urgent presence on pain of death.
Oh, damn. The path of my life is strewn with cowpats from the devil's own satanic herd.
A couple of things that I picked up from the commentary track. Firstly, the sit up on the carpet, but that's a paraphrase of Richard II. And that last line there, Ron Atkinson had to be persuaded to deliver it that way.
Why?
He didn't want to. He didn't think it worked, or he didn't think it worked for Blackadder, I don't know. But he did do it, and they kept it.
We also heard in the clip, Baldric is quite cheeky, bit of impudence.
Yeah, no, he's got a bit of chutzpah. Another interesting thing that comes up during the commentary is retakes and how many goes they got at this. Apparently nobody got a retake. If you messed up a line, tough, they're keeping it in unless there was a technical fault.
You mean just like us in the podcast?
Yeah, we were flawless every time though.
There are a couple of times, I think in this episode, where you hear, I think especially Ron Atkinson, I wouldn't say mess up a line, but you can tell that...
Not 100%. Apparently he though was the one that got away with it. Sometimes he would ruin takes. He would put in different voices or whatever else. And
he also does have I think it's a stutter.
Yes, he would. That was what they said. He would fake a stammer. Was that in the commentary? It might have been a book I read, but certainly, yeah, he would put on his, or not fake, but he would use his stammer to ruin a take so that they could get the recording the way he wanted it. Yeah.
Over to the court. Blackadder arrives to find Queenie playing some sort of chess with Melchett and Nursey looking on. She apparently can't remember what she wanted to talk to him about and dismisses him.
Yep, he's quite happy to make his exits at that point, but they collapse laughing behind him.
Yes. She was just joking and they think this was all great fun, calling him over here for no good reason. But there is worse news for Blackadder. Can you remember what that was?
Yeah, it's a bit of a lose-lose situation for Edmund. The Queen and Melchett had a bet going on how he would react, but no matter who won, he was the one who was going to have to pay up, so it was all the money he had left.
Yeah, £85, very unfair.
Very unfortunate, but also fortunate that it was the amount that he had on him.
Back to the house, he returns, moaning to Baldric about the weakest practical joke since Cardinal Wolsey got his knob out at Hampton Court and stood at the end of a passage pretending to be a door. Now, did you research that? Did that ever happen?
I didn't research the incident. I looked into Cardinal Wolsey. He was apparently a prominent cardinal early in Elizabeth's father, Henry VIII's reign, but he fell out of favour because he had...
For getting his knob out?
Well, he was sent to arranging an annulment of the king's marriage to Catherine of Aragon. Failed to do that, sent away for a while, and they brought him back to try for treason, but he died en route. Not hugely dissimilar from Wat Tyler, who was dying anyway when they executed him. In this case, the cardinal died before they could execute him.
Mm-hmm. And also similar to the plot in the Head episode, where they were intending to pretend that someone was killed on the way to being executed.
Yes, not a million miles away. Percy has a plan.
He does. He at first hugs Blackadder, who is rebuffed in Blackadder style. He says that he has this plan to save his dear, dear friend. And how does Blackadder respond?
Oh, I don't know, I didn't write down how Blackadder responded.
That's my favourite line of the episode.
Well, you tell me then.
That's fantastic. Fantastically cruel. He says he's not interested in his friends. What about him?
It's not dissimilar to the best man situation from the first episode, Bells. He's going to discover the secret of alchemy.
Yeah, that afternoon.
Tony Robinson notes in the commentary that Tim McInerney in this scene is performing like a man who knows he's setting up a brilliant scene later on.
Yeah, you can see that. Baldric himself has a suggestion. What's that?
Well, he suggests heading down the docks, and when Blackadder doesn't quite understand...
Well, yeah, I think he says go down to the docks to do favours for sailors. And I think Blackadder at first asks what you mean, like sewing on buttons, etc.
Yeah, but no, he quickly realises that Baldric is suggesting he become a rent boy.
Yes. Blackadder himself is obviously not going to get involved in that, but he says that with a slight tweak to his idea, it might just work. And we head down to the docks. What do we see?
Baldric's got a sign.
He's dressed like Blackadder.
Yeah, and he's got a sign that says, "Get it here."
And is approached by a large man looking for a kiss.
Well, first of all, he's looking for someone to say to him, there, Arthur, Mommy shall kiss it better and you shall have a story.
Yes. His initial offer is a penny, I think.
Yeah.
Blackadder ups it to tuppence.
That's right. And when Baldric can't remember the line, Blackadder steps in and winds up having to tell a story about a squirrel.
Yes. So it's all, at this point, quite... Yeah,
it's a bit creepy.
It's creepy, but it's...
tolerable from Blackadder's point of view.
Yeah, if you're getting paid to do this, I mean, you could pay me to be a little bit creepy.
Okay, I'm sure we'll get suggestions through from the listeners.
Yeah, but not for tuppence.
No,
at least
no,
10.
20p, yeah.
Yes. But yeah, there's nothing physical happening here.
No, but the sailor then makes a further proposition. What does he say to Blackadder at the end of the story?
He says, okay, thanks for the story. Now, how much for a good hard shag? And they both turn and look at Baldric.
Yeah, and they cut back to Blackadder's home where Baldric's raised sixpence.
What does Baldric suggest they do with this stake?
Yeah, they're going to wager it, or he suggests that they wager it on a cockfight.
Yes. Baldric's plan involves betting it on a dead cert that also has odds of 40,000 to 1.
Yes. There's an elaborate plan about creating a fake bird in here somewhere as well, isn't there?
Yes. Blackadder asks him if he knows of such a bird. Baldric says no, but we can make one, and then I think Blackadder says, right, we need to have a chat about the birds and the bees, but no, it doesn't mean that. It means they're going to stick feathers onto a raging bull or something like that.
Yeah, something ridiculous. Apparently there was some discussion that they might have Baldric limping in this scene, or kind of hirpling, but they realised they decided it was a bit on the knuckle.
Yes, yeah.
A messenger from the Queen shows up at this stage, once again demanding Blackadder's presence on pain of death.
Over to the court, and Queenie apologises for her previous prank. And Nursey tells her that if she was smaller, Mr. and Mrs. Spank would be paying a short, sharp trip to Bottyland.
As Blackadder goes to leave, they all collapse laughing once again. They've fooled him once more.
Yes, and he sarcastically claims that he is in the company of the world's greatest comedian.
They want to play shove halfpenny, essentially.
But they don't have a halfpenny, so they ask Blackadder for one.
All he's got is his sixpence, so they take that, once again rendering him completely bankrupt.
Penniless. Back to the house. He arrives and wonders if Baldric has been eating dung.
This is about to become one of the iconic Blackadder scenes, isn't it?
Yeah, he's met by Percy, who thinks that he has solved all of their problems.
My lord! Success!
What?
After literally an hour's ceaseless searching, I have succeeded in creating gold! Pure gold!
Are you sure?
Yes, my lord. Behold!
Percy, it's green.
That's right, my lord.
Yes, Percy, I don't want to be pedantic or anything, but the colour of gold is gold. That's why it's called gold. What you have discovered, if it has a name, is some green.
Oh, Edmund. Can it be true that I hold here in my mortal hand a nugget of purest green?
Indeed you do, Percy, except, of course, it's not really a nugget, is it? It's more of a splat.
Well, yes, a splat today, but tomorrow, who knows or dares to dream?
So we three alone in all the world can create the finest green at will.
Just so. I'm not sure about counting in Baldric, actually.
Of course, you know what your great discovery means, don't you, Percy?
Perhaps, my lord.
That you, Percy, Lord Percy, are an utter Burke.
Brilliant.
Did you like Percy, who was so generous to Blackadder earlier on, trying to cut Baldric out of the money here?
Yeah, it's a good point, isn't it? Yeah, but you need to remember that Percy would see himself and Blackadder as being on equal social footings. You know,
Interesting that Blackadder doesn't. He, I think, sees Percy and Baldric as being equivalent, if not socially, certainly in relation to him.
no, I don't. Yes, I think intellectually he does.
Yeah.
But
That's why I suggest them
yeah,
both.
but he knows that socially they're not.
I'm sure he knows, but he
Yeah.
still treats Percy as if he's along those lines, doesn't he?
Yeah.
There's only one thing for it now. He's going to have to sell his house.
Yes. So he tells Baldric to go forth into the street and let people know, and tells Percy just to go forth into the street. Now, I think this is an example, and there's another example in this episode where Blackadder trusts Baldric to go and do something,
Yeah.
and he does.
Yeah.
He doesn't make a mess of it. You know, season 3 or season 4, Baldric makes a complete hash of any task, but in this case, he's given the job, and
It's not considered that he wouldn't be able to do it.
it's efficiently performed.
Yeah.
So it's a little later, we see Blackadder showing Mr. and Mrs. Pants around the house, and Mr. Pants seems impressed by Blackadder's banter, but she's more interested in the privy situation that we had at the top of the podcast.
Well, she's delighted though when she finds out they don't have one of those nasty indoor unhygienic toilets.
Yeah. Back then, yeah, it might be a thing. You know, it might be something that you wouldn't want to bring into your house if you're only known about doing that type of thing outside. When someone suggests that you bring it inside,
Yeah, it'd be a bit weird.
yeah, it'd be like keeping a horse inside. You wouldn't do it.
No, unless you lived in a barn.
Or the horse was from Hot to Trot.
That's a niche reference.
Yeah, some people will get it.
Yeah, not me. Later on, Blackadder sold the house for £1,100.
Yeah, he managed to get an extra £100 from them, although this was achieved by Baldric beating them up. So again, here's another job that Baldric has successfully performed.
Yep, so you imagine he maybe also had Baldric beat up Kate's dad to get his £10 back, and Belle's as well.
He then notices that Percy has a brooch and ring made of pure snot-looking green.
Yeah, and we get one of the classic Blackadder put-downs in this scene.
What was that?
He tells Percy that the eyes are open and the mouth moves, but Mr. Brain has long since departed, hasn't he?
Yeah. And again, the messenger appears, summoning Blackadder to the Queen. So that's where we go. And he arrives to be informed that the French intend invading. And as such, all noblemen have to stump up £500.
Yes, and they ask him to contribute more than that on this occasion,
Why?
because Melchett has no money, and Blackadder's really rich.
So he has to pay Melchett's share.
Yes.
Now, he claims to have nothing, but the Queen immediately notices just over £1,000 in his tights. And he has to pretend that it's mere loose change, that's why he wasn't aware of it.
And hands it over.
A sad tune plays then as Blackadder departs, and he's being ignored as he says his final goodbyes, which he thinks is his final goodbyes. He's
He's
facing
getting
death,
executed, yeah. And they start laughing and fooling around about the Queen.
Well, after he's left, so he doesn't
once
hear
he's gone,
this.
yeah. But the Queen's maybe not quite as amused as it seemed initially.
No, how does she express this?
She's going to have Melchett executed for cruelly taking the mickey out of Edmund.
Yes. Now, at this, Melchett, he panics and he begs for his life until he realises that this was another joke, but this time on him.
He doesn't like that as much.
No, there's a close-up of his face and you can see that
He can dish it out.
cannot take it.
No. Surprisingly common.
Back to the house. He tells Baldric that he is going to do a runner, until Baldric again offers a worthwhile opinion. He reminds him that the church has branches everywhere.
There's no point running.
Nope. So despondent, Blackadder falls to the ground, defeated, and his spirits are not improved by Baldric.
If I die, Baldy, do you think people would remember me?
Yeah, of course they would.
Yes, I suppose so.
Yeah, people would always be slapping each other on the shoulders and laughing and saying, "Do you remember old Privy Breath?"
Do people call me Privy Breath?
Yeah, the ones who like you.
Am I then not popular?
Well, put it this way. When people slip in what dogs have left in the street, they do tend to say, "Whoops, I've trodden an Edmund."
Bloody cheek. Now I'll show them.
What, have you got a plan, my lord?
Yes, I have, and it's so cunning you could brush your teeth with it. All I need is some feathers, a dress, some oil, an easel, some sleeping draught, lots of paper, a prostitute, and the best portrait painter in England.
I'll get them right away, my lord.
Another couple of examples. Firstly, Baldric's quite cheeky in that clip, but also he's to go and collect all these materials, and he does so, and Blackadder is quite happy for him to do it.
Yeah, I think there's some comedy in the fact that last week he couldn't remember like one line of dialogue to say to Blackadder, and then this week he can remember a list of 12 things that he has to go off and get.
Yeah. In fact, a few weeks ago, he couldn't remember, he couldn't count 4 beans.
Yeah. But now he's given this lengthy to-do list and he's able to handle it all. And
Yeah, perhaps he's a Kaiser Sose type. He's pretending to be dumb.
Maybe.
Yeah, and he's
Hiding in plain sight.
So Baldric returns with Leonardo Acropolis, the most gifted portrait painter in the land.
Sure.
And he puts his plan to work. What happens next?
Well, next we have Baldric arriving backside first through the doors once again, tossed by the Bishop of Bath and Wells, who has arrived for his money.
He also admits to being a sexual pervert.
Well, he says he's a colossal pervert, and that no source of sexual depravity is too low for him.
No, animal, mineral, or vegetable. He will do anything to anything.
And I liked the response, saying it was fine words for a bishop, and it's nice to hear the church speaking out on social issues.
So he asks if Blackadder has the money for him, and there's a confidence, there's a strut, a cockiness about Blackadder as he admits he does not.
Almost a nonchalance.
Yes. So at this, the bishop claims it's poker time. He's quite happy. He didn't want Blackadder to cough up. He likes this torture.
Yeah, he hates it when folk pay up. Baldric gives him a drink of water before he gets going,
Mickey Finn.
and he passes out.
He wakes up in the bedroom some time later, and he's about to attack Blackadder when what happens?
They reveal a portrait of him in a compromising position.
You can only imagine.
Well, yeah, we don't get any details, but we heard what Blackadder asked Baldric for earlier. He goes for the painting, but they explain to him that it won't make any difference because they've got all the preliminary sketch.
I like that.
And he says to them, "Never have I encountered such corrupt and foul-minded perversity. Have you ever considered a career in the church?"
So, realising the position he's in, he agrees to pay the money plus an additional £4,000 odd,
Yeah, there's a range of things that Blackadder requires money for, so he's getting it from the bishop.
including a slap-up victory meal at Mrs. Miggin's pie shop.
Absolutely.
But the bishop is curious about something else.
Yes, but first one question. Who is the second figure? Who could you have got to have performed such deeds? To have gone lower that man has ever gone? To have plunged the depths of degradation just in order to save your filthy life!
Percy, may I introduce His Grace, the Bishop of Bath and Wells, Your Grace, Lord Percy Percy, heir to the Duchy of Northumberland.
Hello. It was lovely working with you.
And of course in that clip we saw a sheepish looking Percy in full bondage regalia.
And something weird in his head. I couldn't even figure out what was going on there.
I don't know. These days I could take a guess, but I don't think that would have been invented back then, so I'll not say anything.
We mentioned earlier the Bishop of Bath and Wells. He's in real life an actual bishop who's entitled to sit in the House of Lords, and there's a fellow Peter Price who held that title between 2002 and 2013, and he actually talked about this episode when he made his maiden speech to the House of Lords, and it's not the shortest quote in the world, but I don't get to quote from Hansard very often on the podcast, so I'm going to read some of it for you.
Okay, there's normally a reason why you don't get to quote from Hansard, but I'll trust you.
Okay, so this is the Bishop of Bath and Wells to Parliament. He says, in the aftermath of the Blackadder television series, there are always perils for the Bishops of Bath and Wells. I am constantly reminded of the alleged activities of one of my predecessors as a baby eater. Entering your lordship's house has proved no exception, and the greeting from the doorkeeper on my first day was capped only by the Bishop of Southwark seeing my 5-week-old granddaughter arrive and remarking, "The bishop has brought his own lunch."
Brilliant. That's great. Well done, sir.
Absolutely. Hat tip to that man.
So this episode was first broadcast on the 5th of February 1986, and again, the same writing and directing team behind it. You mentioned Ronald Lacy. He played the Bishop of Bath and Wells. He died in 1991, aged just 55. You may have seen him in Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade. He was also in Connie, Red Sonja, Magnum, Blake 7, Porridge, Jason King and Zed Cars, amongst a long list of other things.
It was really good in this one.
He was.
I think he was quite prominent in Indiana Jones. It was one of the Nazis, wasn't he?
Was he? I'm not sure.
I think so.
Okay. This might tickle you, Ian.
Okay.
At his memorial service, the song Sometimes When We Touch was performed by Ian Bartholomew.
Oh,
was it you?
It wasn't me, but is he spelling Ian differently from me?
Yeah, spelling it differently.
There is an actor by that name, presumably with the Equity name, who's been in The Bill and some other bits and pieces.
Casualty?
Probably.
There you go. Molly was played by Cassie Stewart. She has starred in The Bill, EastEnders, Minder, Lovejoy and Cardiac Arrest. Did you recognise Mrs. Pants?
She wasn't there long enough for me to really...
Yeah, I recognised her straight away because I'm a big fan of Downton Abbey.
Okay, I'm not, so...
Yeah, she played the Mrs. Patmore, the cook. She was born in 1953, as well as Downton Abbey. She had an uncredited appearance in the recent Ghostbusters. Sarah and Duck. Do you watch that?
No.
My wee man watches Sarah and Duck, so it's a cartoon.
Okay, a recent one, yeah.
CBeebies type thing, yeah. Doctors, The Bill, Heartbeat, Casualty, and she played, is it Mrs. Beaver or Mrs... What's the Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe? Is it the Beavers?
Okay, there's Beavers, yeah.
Yeah, Mrs. Beaver in that. Also in East is East and the stage play, East is East. I think she declined or was dropped from a part in Doctor Who, Dragonfire. Now, I'm not sure what that is, Doctor Who, Dragonfire.
I don't know. Did she miss out on the bingo?
Yeah. And she lost out to Julie Waters for the role of Molly Weasley.
And the Harry Potter movies, yeah. Yeah, she does a good job with it.
The Poor Tom character was played by Tony Aitken, born in 1946. He has starred in Doctors, Coronation Street, Holby, The Queen's Nose, Casualty, Number 73, End of Part 1, Zed Cars and Jabberwocky. But we have seen him a few times before and we will see him in the future.
Okay.
He plays the minstrel at the end of each of these episodes.
He showed up in the cemetery in this one.
Yes. Do you have a favourite line this week?
I've got a couple. I'm going to opt for when the bishop says, "You see, I am a colossal pervert."
Okay.
Quite enjoyed that bit.
I had mentioned earlier about the dear friend line, but I think I might change it to the Mr. and Mrs. Spank taking a trip to Bottyland.
Nurse's line.
Yes.
Yeah. What's next then?
In 2 weeks we have beer.
I have beer most weeks, but okay.
In 2 minutes we will have beer. Yep, so that should be good fun. Episode 5 that will be.
Yeah, we're coming to a rapid conclusion. Mm-hmm. Not rapid enough, some might say, with fortnightly shows. But if you're missing us in between, you can find us on the Jonathan Creek podcast.
Yep. And if you like Columbo, you could always get us on that as well. It's not live, but
You get 70 odd episodes on that to catch up on, so good luck.
That's us then.
It is. We'll see folk next week.
No, we won't.
In 2 weeks.
We will.
We'll see them next week if they listen to both the podcasts.
Cheerio.
Bye.